Hello fellow AGDxers, welcome to another quick video just to give you a couple of animation tips, something that you can do to save a little bit of memory if memory is short. So let's take a look at the sprite that we have here. As you can see, it's a kind of jetpack inspired sprite, and we've got a man here that is basically just walking like that. I mean, obviously I could tweak it a little bit if I wanted, but for the purposes of this demo that's just fine. Here you can see the full sprite and all of the frames. Now what you'll notice here, and this is a very common thing in AGD, that we've got two frames here, this one and that one, which are the same frame, and this basically makes it easier to animate, because obviously you're kind of going in a back and forward motion. So that means the script is fairly compact, and if you have a look in here, you can see we've got the usual here, and then we've got the delayed animation here, which runs on a timer, which is just down here. Incidentally, if you have a timer with just one frame, this is probably the very shortest, most compact way that you can do it. Just the reason for that is that you don't need to set A at the start, because it will basically check, and if A is not 0, then it will set it to 0. So it means that in the initialization part here, you don't need to set A, so you save a few bytes there, and with the check as well, you save a couple. So always good to be efficient, isn't it? Okay, so how can we improve this and actually use less frames? Because as you can see here, these frames are the same, these two here and these two, so we could probably cut these two out with a little bit of code, and if we were to do so, that would actually save us 2 frames, which would be 256 bytes, and obviously that would then be we'd be able to use that to add another screen, or to add another couple of frames to another sprite, something like that. Okay, so let's take a look at the solution to this particular problem. Okay, so here I am with an updated version, and as you can see here, there are only 3 frames rather than the previous 4, and here you can see I've got this one, this one, this one, and here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put an animation routine in, which is going to make the sprite sort of bounce back and forward between these, I've seen this done before, but this is the most efficient way that I've found to do it. I'll just show you it running here. As you can see, it works nicely, and there is actually an additional little trick that I've done here, which also is helpful, which when you stop, the player always goes to the standing position. So it doubles up really with 2 things. Let's take a look at the code. As you can see here, before I go through it, it's really not that long. It's not much longer than the other code, so we're not losing too much, and we are getting that extra bonus of checking. So let's take a look and talk about what we've got here. So the first thing that we've got here is just the standard normal routine, but what I'm doing is, you'll see that I've got a rand here. Now this is a temporary variable. I'm setting it to 0, and here I'm checking if key 0 is pressed and the sprite is moving to the right, and here if it's moving to the left. In other words, if the sprite is moving either to the right or to the left, then rand will be set, and that means we can test for either condition with a single action here, and this basically functions like an OR command. So we're basically setting rand like a flag for either of those. Then we have our timer check as per usual, and here we've got the dir variable, which is going to be used to test for whether the sprite is to be animated forwards or backwards. So let's just take a look at this. As you can see, we animate here, and let's imagine we're at frame 0, then it will go to frame 1, frame 2, and ordinarily it would then go to frame 0 again. So by checking for frame 0 here, it means we've reached the end of the animation. So what we do is we basically reset the direction here, and we set it to 1, so that we know that we're now going to reverse the animation. And what we do here, as you can see, is we add another frame to step forward. So in other words, when it gets to 2 here, it goes to 0. Then we know that it's to 0, and then it goes to 1, because obviously when we're at frame 2 and we want the next frame, we don't want frame 0 anymore. We want now to go back to 1. So what we're doing is stepping twice from 0 and then back to 1 again. So we're looping through to the point at which it would be reversed. And this is the simplest way to do it, because we just have these two simple anim commands here. And then we tell it, okay, now we're animating in the other direction. So that means we're now going backwards. And as you can see here, rather than animate when it's dr0, when it's 1, it will animate backwards. And of course, it will go from, say, 2 to 1 to 0, and then at 0, it will go back to 2. So same principle applies. We will then animate backwards twice, so that we go 2 to 1 to 0. When it hits 2, it goes back one more time, and then it equals 1. We change the direction, and that means it will then continue to go to 2. And as a result of these two commands, of these two little routines, we will have a cycle of frame 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, like that. And that will continue, and that's why, as you saw, when the man was walking, that was the animation that we achieved. And the final thing we've got here, as you can see, here, let frame 0, that is if the keys are not pressed, because obviously rand will be 1 if either is pressed. So this very simple check here will basically ensure that when we're not pressing keys, it will be frame 0, which means that it will stop moving. So as you can see here, that's exactly what happens. That's frame 0, and there you go. Okay, so that's basically it. As you can see, it saves probably, I think, about 150 bytes in total, because obviously the code is a little bit longer, but it is more efficient, and you do get that extra bonus as well. So obviously, I think it's worthwhile. And yeah, okay, great. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back with more videos soon, hopefully. In the meantime, as always, happy coding. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.